Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Success Talks. My name is Jared. I'm your host. I go by Self-Taught Success on the internet. And the meaning of that name is all the information you need is out there. It's just up to you to seek it out, go find it, learn it, and then go apply it on path to your goals. And so the goal of this podcast is to bring that information right to you so you can apply it and go accomplish your goals. With that being said, I'm very excited for our two guests that we have on today, the two co-founders of Timpi. Timpi is a company focused on creating the world's first decentralized web index. Their primary product is a decentralized web scale data index, which is the third largest in the world behind Bing and Google. So pretty amazing when you think of that. So with that being said, I'm very excited to bring on Jorg and Gareth. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you. And before we dive into the company, I think it's really important for whether it's users as retail users or just investors in general to really understand who you guys are and the people behind the product. But before we get into that, I'd love to hear your quick 30-second elevator pitch as far as to what Timpi is and the benefits that it brings.
Yeah, so Timpi is first and foremost a data company, and as you said, we built the largest decentralized data index of the internet. This is powered by our DePin network, and through decentralization, we're able to solve some really key challenges in the industry and in the way that data has been siloed and used. So perhaps we can come on to some of that in more detail as we talk.
Absolutely. I think one thing that we'll dive into deeper too that's really exciting about Timpi is the unbiased aspect of search engine, but also an AI and how that comes together. AI is just, as everybody knows, just skyrocketed within the last 2 years. But with that, there are a lot of unknowns behind that. To be able to have the unbiasedness and to have it be decentralized is a really exciting topic that I'm excited to dive into with you guys. I want to dive into a little bit about each of yours background, just so the people listening can have a better feel for who's behind Timpi. So Jorg, we'll start with you if you want to share a little bit about your background and also about how you co-created ISO 27001. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So my background is information security. I have been doing it for ages. Mid-90s, I started with that. And I was initially working with the German government for information security and created the first framework in Germany. And from there, I contributed to the ISO 27001 certification as well. And it is basically a framework that you can get a certification for. And this certification proves that you have certain information security management systems implemented into your business. And over the last couple of years, I have been doing just that. And then in 2015, I started Darkscope as a cyber intelligence business. And the reason for that was basically there was not enough in cybersecurity, but doing it, I needed to create a search engine. And this search engine was in this case for the dark web. But while working on Darkscope's search engine, I was thinking of it would be really great to have an alternative to what we see today. And that sparked the entire idea of Timpi, basically. And then, there's a little bit more about how do we come to today? But yeah, that's where the initial thought was planted.
Awesome. And I'm excited to dive a little bit more into how Timpi founded. You started a little bit of it there. But first, Gareth, if you want to talk about your background, how you got to this point as well. I'd love to hear that.
So my background in IT consultancy, predominantly in the implementation of ERP systems. I kind of started this journey where I worked with Hewlett Packard as part of their graduation scheme for several years. Lucky enough to work with some very large international blue chip organizations and gain a wealth of experience in doing so. My experience is really focused around the business and operational side, and then how we can utilize technologies to fulfill and achieve the overarching business goals. So we've got a really nice mesh of experience between myself and Jorg. Jorg's got a excellent technical knowledge across many different technologies, and I'm more focused on business and operation sides. Works
absolutely. And you mentioned there a little bit that you guys mesh really well. Just as kind of we're sitting in a green room getting for this episode to start, I can definitely tell the A and the B, the yin and the yang between you two. You guys definitely have a good mesh of very complementary skills. And
Yeah.
so if you're listening to this and you're trying to figure out, what all that technical stuff that they just said as far as their backgrounds, basically what it means is the IQ of these two guys is on a very high number on the scale. And a lot of people in the crypto space or in the DeFi space, whatever it is, DePin space, they're always wanting, are the founders docs? Are the founders docs? Well, here they are. You can see them, and you can find these guys on LinkedIn as well. So next question I have for you guys, you both led into it a little bit as far as your backgrounds, but how did you come together to meet each other and to initiate starting Timpi?
Yeah, so I mean, New Zealand is a very small place. We are both located in New Zealand, and that means, especially in our industry, you always meet people. And I have met Gareth, or we have met each other years ago. We have been doing some other, smaller stuff, or working on the same customer, for example, and stuff like that. So we already knew each other from previous engagements, and we had coffees. When I had the idea of Timpi, concentrated firstly, as I said, on Darkstock, but back in 2019, there was this event with my lovely lady. She basically triggered the I want to go and do Timpi because she was searching for something online, and she knew what she wants is available in New Zealand from a very small shop. And she used Google, and what happened was Google always pointed her to the big guys, but never listed actually the small shop just in New Zealand. And that frustrated her a lot. And that's what that was a trigger for me. Okay, now it's time. We have to do something about it. So I talked to Gareth about it, and he had some great ideas how we can actually do it. When it comes to founding a business, is really to make sure that it is not just technology. I can have the best idea when it comes to technology. If you don't have someone on your side that helps you to actually do it and to also do the other areas of a business, then it just won't work. So that's what you said. We really work quite well together. I mean, it goes as far as Gareth is the early bird in the morning. So he's awake at 6 a.m. I'm the late guy. I stay up after midnight, and that really works quite well. We have different capabilities that really work well together.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you do. I would agree with that just from my little bit of interactions with you guys. You kind of touched into it a little bit about having the unbiasedness within the search. I want to jump, and I don't necessarily want to jump too far out of order. Maybe we can start a little bit first, a little bit more background behind Timpi. What is the mission? What is the vision behind the company? I definitely want to get into that unbiasedness because I think that's very important for our audience to understand. But can you tell us a little bit more about the mission, the vision behind Timpi and its goals as far as what it's setting out to do?
Yeah, so what makes Timpi unique, as we briefly mentioned, is that we have our data set. And this data set is essentially the collection of information of the internet, web pages, domains, images, metadata. It's the information that drives Google and Bing's services. The industry is quite unique in the fact that there's only four others other than Timpi, four large-scale indexes of the internet. And they are controlled by Google, Bing, Yandex, and Baidu. There are no others other than Timpi. So Timpi's the fifth. And the challenge is that this data is controlled by these guys. They're essentially gatekeepers, and they make it prohibitive for organizations to access this data, either through the uneconomical cost to actually access it, but they also restrict the types of data that developers, researchers, and business can get access to. One of the topics that's very hot right now is what data is being used to train models, and how can that data be trusted? Well, we know that the centralized organizations manipulate that data. There's loads of evidence with Google manipulating search results according to their political agendas or commercial biases. And so how can you trust this data? Not only from a perspective of an end user accessing it through a search engine, but then also how can we trust it for actually the development of AI, which giving people guidance? And this is the problem that we're solving essentially by having the world's first and only decentralized index, we're able to be independent from these other guys, and with that independence, then we're able to be transparent, not manipulate or create biases within that data.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I don't know if I'm stuck on it in my mind, but it seems like you guys keep hitting on those same points of being unbiased to the data, which is a huge selling point behind that. One thing that comes to mind as a marketer, for me, a lot of companies pour thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into SEO, and really basically they're paying Google to get the preferential treatment. So how does that apply to if somebody's using Timpi, the different search results within that?
Yeah, and that will basically change with Timpi. So you can't buy your rank in Timpi, for sure not. It's really what we want to deliver is content that is related to what it is you're looking for. And we do have the same feature. So if you look into, okay, I want a pizza, for example, then we will not show you a pizza in Bangladesh. We will show you a pizza that is relatively close to yourself. Yeah. So that's still the same functionality. But when it comes to things you want to buy, for example, we are not just showing you the big guys. We show you basically what our search engine finds, what is closest to you and what has the content. So it's really content driven. If you look up for an article, we will not push certain media. We will basically be completely independent and completely unbiased in terms of who's talking about, or who's writing about this content. It's all content driven, because the most important part is, and that's the biggest problem today in the internet, is we create echo chambers. So echo chambers are created by the search engines right now, because if you search for something, you will hear what you want to hear, or you will be steered into a direction where they want you to be. And that's very dangerous, because then you have echo chambers that do not allow to have a different view, or do not allow, or to not give you a different view. So it will always confirm what you already think. It might be right, it might be wrong. What we want to do is giving the all available information to the user, so they can basically create educated opinion. They can say, well, yes, I have seen this side, I have seen this side, so now I can create my own opinion about it, but I have all information that I need. And that's what's really missing. And that was the whole idea of the internet. Internet was basically an unlimited source of information, and now it's very limited for us.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, if you search for something, you're in a specific category, you're probably going to see with the SEO the same couple websites, when in reality there's thousands of them.
Millions.
Millions. One thing that I found really interesting behind what you guys do as far as organizing those searches is part of that comes down to a cybersecurity ratings. And to everybody in crypto, I think that's a huge aspect, because if you search for something, you want to make sure that when you log into or click on that website, that you're finding real information and it's not going to, steal your information, whatever it may be. Can you guys talk a little bit about how Timpi is able to organize search results based on cybersecurity ratings?
Yeah, so we do a lot of checks for websites. So basically, we look into how secure are these websites and can they harm the user. But that does not mean that we score them, or that we do score them, but we don't filter them out. So it is important for us to even show pages that are not as secure, because we don't want to banish anyone from our index. We are independent and we are unbiased. So nevertheless, what we do is we again give the user the choice. So we give the user the information, hey, this website might be dangerous to you, and we would recommend not to go there. But hey, you can decide to go there. That's no problem at all. So it's, again, we do not filter out based on these factors. We just show the information and give basically the user the option. I mean, that's what we all want, right? We want to have the option, and we can decide for ourselves. So the check is a lot more comprehensive than what on Google, for example, when they say this website has a invalid or invalid SSL certificate. Well, that's not really useful. It's based on 54 checks that runs against the domain, and that helps to understand, okay, is it, do they have a reputation? Are they secure and stuff like that? So that helps the user to navigate the internet, basically.
That totally sounds reasonable and totally makes sense. Gareth, you touched on it a little bit as far as how the technology works, a little bit, but I would like you to dive in a little bit as far as the node network and how that translates with Timpi.
Yeah, and then if I may, I'll just add a bit to what Jörg said as well, and then lead into that, because you'll see a lot of what we're speaking about today. The overarching theme here is to provide people with access to trusted information and trusted data, whether it's through the search engine, whether it's providing data directly to people for training of AI models or development and research purposes. It's all about, for the first time, people being able to get access to information with the true vision of why the internet was created in the first place, which was to have information sharing to be freely available across the world. And that just hasn't happened. So Timpi is really addressing that, giving people the freedom for the first time to access trusted data. And again, it's not just through the search engine. People and developers are going to be able to utilize this data, trust this data, but because of our business model, we can actually do that at a fraction of the cost to any of the competitors as well. Now, this is all then driven by our DePin network. Sorry, Jared, you had a question?
Well, I was gonna say the whole spirit of, I guess you could say, crypto starts with Bitcoin, but decentralized finance in general is the whole giving the power back to the people and allowing that to basically let them have the freedom of choice behind their decisions and whatever it may be. And so I think a lot of times in the decentralized space, a lot of people, they mask something as DeFi that's not really DeFi with different plug and play power chords and stuff like that. But the more I hear you guys talk, you guys really sound like the poster boys for decentralization. So it's good to hear that from founders, because sometimes we talk to founders of decentralized products and it's like, is it really decentralized? So it's good to hear that. That was just my thought that I had. So not really a question other than my last question about the node network, but it's good to hear that from you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because we couldn't achieve what we'd achieved without decentralization. From a technical standpoint, but the business model as well only works by utilizing the decentralization. We've built this index, which we're capable currently of growing at over 3.5 billion records per week through our DePin network. And let me just share. I'm going to share my screen here so I can talk a bit more about how that DePin network is structured. DePin networks essentially is comprised of 4 different nodes. These people are able to run these nodes and get rewards. We've got another cell coming up, which we'll talk about later on in the podcast. People purchase the NFTs and then they can run these nodes and get rewarded. And each of these nodes have a distinct function. The collector node here pulls the information from the internet. So this is the node that's running, and it's pulling information from web pages and domains and metadata, images, videos. And this then pushes that data onto the Guardian node, which stores the data. GeoCore node manages and coordinates the information streams from the collector to the Guardian, and then also out to our other services, which includes our AI model, Wilson, you can come on to, and the search engine. And then the Synaptron node is used for running AI models. That's very, very high level, the node architecture and what each of those nodes do.
Yeah, so while we're on the topic, if you guys want, I'd love to just dive in a little bit more about the nodes. You mentioned your pre-sale and your sale for the nodes coming up. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been expanding the network over the last 9 months, but really starting to really build it more rapidly over the last 6 months. We've got different blocks where we're expanding this network essentially, and we call these blocks Apex events. We had the first Apex event, I think it was back in April. This was an event which was focused around the collector node. What we do in these events is really stress test the network. We had a sale of the collector nodes, and then everyone runs those collector nodes at full capacity over a period of time. We have the second Apex event coming up, which is the Apex 2, which is focused around the Guardian. The node sales for this start publicly for everyone on the 17th of July. We do have a pre-sale event starting on the 15th, where people will be able to get whitelisted and early access to those nodes before it goes to the public sale. We've got an opportunity through self-success with people being able to jump in early for those nodes. And we've got some very high rewards. So what we're actually doing is we're guaranteeing the amount of rewards that you'll be getting for the first 3 years.
3 years is a good sign. Not a 3-day thing. That's good.
No, we are here. It's for the long run. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
There you go.
Yeah, we're going to be releasing these figures in the next couple of days, like tomorrow probably. And so, but they're very high rewards. The year one is sitting around 30% based on our current price, and then it does decrease over time. But obviously, we've got things in place, and there's growing demand for the token. So we can't actually guarantee what the APY, effective APY, will be because price fluctuates. We're at a very low market cap right now for what we're doing. We're only just starting right now to push our marketing and get a lot of traction as we've got a lot of product releases coming out. So what we're guaranteeing is actually the number of tokens that we're receiving, and it's very, very rewarding.
That's your native token that you're talking about there, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's your
correct.
receive. Yep.
Yeah, then that'll be NCMTI on our blockchain, which is called Notero. We are cross-chain with Ethereum, fully cross-chain with Ethereum, so you can bridge this across onto Ethereum, where you can trade on either Uniswap or Bitmart on Bitmart exchange as well. So we're cross-chain between Notero, which is a Cosmos-based network, and Ethereum.
And I think that cross-chain aspect is, it sounds like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised at how many different projects I talk to, and there's, they don't have some kind of bridge or something like that. And it's just really hard to onboard users to the masses when you don't have that feature. So good for you guys for having that feature. It may seem like a no-brainer, but be surprised at how many people don't have that. But like I said at the beginning, high IQ guys that I'm talking to right here. So of course they have that part figured out already. So that's great. And anybody who's listening, if you're curious about this, I'll make sure I have the Timpi website and the link to those nodes, those NFTs down in the description as well. Jorg, anything you want to touch on the NFTs or the node sale?
Yeah, I mean, our network. So we are not a typical crypto project, as you might seen. We are not running with 60,000 nodes and sell them right now and stuff like that. We have these 4 different nodes, and there's a reason behind it, because we need to grow sustainably. And we have developed our own network protocol that we call the TAP, and that allows it to for the network to grow autonomously where it's needed. So that means the nodes or the NFTs that we sell right now, the access NFTs, that will be the only time when we sell them. And that's why we call them the Founders Edition. Any NFT that comes after that will basically be issued by the network protocol itself, and we will not sell them anymore. And they are very limited. So we are not talking about we will have 50,000 NFTs floating around, because our network grows as needed, and we don't need so many, and it will actually hurt every single one if we would do that. So we always balance that everyone gets the maximum reward while we get the maximum performance out of it. Efficiency.
Yeah. Everybody loves efficiency.
Yeah. So just to put some of those numbers into perspective. So for the first Apex event with the collectors, we released 150 nodes. And for these next events, we have 500 Guardians and another 150 collectors that are going on sale. In our first sale, we sold out within 24 hours. Again, we release what we need to grow sustainably.
Yeah.
If people go to release 10,000 nodes, yeah, that'd be great for us in terms of getting capital to play with. But ultimately, what that would mean is long term, it's not sustainable, and also the rewards that people would get wouldn't be compelling enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important that you guys are hitting on that too, is the rewards aspect. Obviously, there's things that having more capital for almost every company, is a good thing unless they're, complete degenerates and just burn it. Not having more capital is a good thing. But a lot of times it's about, if you're a public company, rewarding those shareholders and thinking about them. So even though you guys clearly aren't a public company, but on the decentralized side, that you're thinking about that and having those essentially shareholders in mind, I think that goes a long way. And you mentioned, kind of the size, being a small market cap, where you're at. When I was looking at your guys' page, you still have 10 employees plus you two, or 10 team members, and a lot of crypto projects. It's like, you can't really find, is anybody involved, whatever it may be. I know you guys are kind of separate from a crypto project. You just happen to be in the decentralized space. I was impressed that you guys had 10 to 12 different people on your team. But I think if we think about this as well, I want the audience to understand Google's market cap right now is $2.3 trillion. $2.3 trillion. Google has 181,000 employees, and that's after a bunch of layoffs. These guys are 10 to 12. There's 5 people that are in a similar space, and these guys are one of them. And Google and Bing are 2 of the others. So I was thinking about that. I was impressed that it was 10 to 12, but when I was thinking about this earlier, it's like, man, if you were early in Google when they had 10 to 12 employees, now it's been since 1997, but if you look at, what is that, 27 years, it's like 27 years. If you go from 10 to 12 employees to 181,000, where your guys' market cap is right now to Google's 2.3 trillion, it's like, that sounds very interesting. So,
and we've built our tokenomics and economic model so that the token growth is directly related to our real world revenues that we'll be pulling in through providing API access to our data through the data marketplace that's coming, and also through advertising revenue through the search engine and dashboards. And so we'll be using those revenues to buy back our own token to reward the DePin network node runners. And what's really interesting and quite unique about this, the search engine and data industry, as you touched on, is the sheer size. So when we get to a size of 1% market share, that's revenues in the billions. And so that is very, very achievable with what we have. And as I said, that's directly related back to where we are with the token. And I think the token circulating market cap is around 2 million right now for where we're at and the stage and the project. Just from a blockchain and crypto side of things, that's incredibly low compared to comparables. There's a reason behind that, and the reason is that we've just been building the technology, right? So we haven't pushed it out significantly yet. We are doing that right now, and as people become more aware of what we're doing, which is what's great to be here with yourself today, Jared, is making people aware of what we're doing, and that's just going to benefit. Trying to say things sensitively here, no financial advice, no guarantees, all of that kind of stuff. But essentially, we've been building over the last 2 years. We're about to release several different products, and we're in a very good space with huge opportunity.
No, I think that's beautifully said. It's just about bringing that information to people. And like I said at the beginning, that's the goal of this podcast. That's kind of where it stems from me. I think after high school, it was just Google and YouTube were my best 2 friends as far as just trying to learn and teach myself. So that's the goal of this podcast, is to bring that information right to people, and to bring on intelligent people like you two to share that. Gareth, you touched on 2 things that I really want to get on. One being kind of leading into the roadmap aspect, but the first one I want to touch on is you mentioned advertising. I love your guys' you have a non-intrusive advertising feature. And for me, when I search on Google right now, if it's the website I want, like I might search for, let's just say you mentioned pizza earlier. So if I search for Domino's, the first thing that's going to come up is Domino's, but it's probably going to say sponsored at the top. And then right underneath, it's going to be the exact same link that says Domino's, but it's not sponsored. And so I never click the sponsored one because I know that's going to affect, the algorithm and, what Google serves me, and it drives me nuts. I cringe whenever I see anybody else click the sponsor one. It's like, no, just take the one right under it. It's the same thing. So I love that you guys offer that feature. But as far as advertising on your platform, on Timpi, how does advertising work for, one, the advertisers, but two, also for you guys, and then the node people with the nodes?
Do you want me to step on, Jörg?
Yeah, start with it and maybe I get it.
There we go. Yeah. So advertising through the search engine dashboard is going to be the same as you do with Gene. Very all Twitter, any other space. It'll be exactly the same, where you put your ad content up, you identify what keywords that you want to show the ads in, and works exactly the same way. What's different is, on the front end, the ads are shown very clearly on the sidebar, because we don't manipulate results. We're not trying to fool anyone here.
That's good.
You mentioned, they have sponsored, in search results, but it's very small. And of course, they make it look very exactly the same as an actual organic search results. And they're not just at the top, they kind of slice them in and put them in between because they want you to click on it. But essentially, again, it's manipulated search results. So we don't put anything in line with the actual search results at all. Another interesting feature with our advertising is that we have this extra layer between the ad being placed and the ad being clicked, which is a preview mode. When a user basically hovers, they can look at the ad and look at more information about the ads without actually having to go through into that URL, whoever is advertising. Now, what this means from a user perspective is that they can have access to information. Again, always coming back to how can we give people access to information without abusing them, right? And so they can hover over, preview the information, look at it. Is that where I want to go to? No, that's not quite right for me, without having to click through. From an advertiser's perspective, they're going to get much better quality of results coming through. They'll be able to reduce their costs because the clicks on their ads are much higher quality.
Yep. Going to be more intentional clicks.
Yeah.
More intentional clicks.
And I wanted to say one thing to the sponsored one on Google. I mean, it wouldn't be that bad if you would search for, I don't know, Pizza Hut, and then you will get only Pizza Hut. That's fine. But you don't get only Pizza Hut. You get basically McDonald's on top of Pizza Hut, even though they have nothing to do with pizza. And that's what really, it's not context driven what you have on Google these days. It's really a lot of money driven, and it's very annoying. And that's the biggest problem that we have. But it's, don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing on Google. It's just when you look back on Google, what they always stated, their statement is what we say today, basically. They have said no advertisement. They have said we don't manipulate your results. That's just pure search. That's what they stated when they started. And then they got some interesting development in their business, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And well, with us, that can't happen. So even if we would, and we are not here to replace Google. We are basically here to provide an alternative. And if we look onto someone like DuckDuckGo, a lot of people know DuckDuckGo. They have a market share of 0.7%, which is very tiny, but it's a couple of $1 billion valuation. So you don't need to remove Google from that. We will not do that. We are not competing with Google. We are even not competing with DuckDuckGo. We would love to work with them together. Remember, we have the data that they are actually at the moment buying from Bing. So if they can have access to an unbiased index and help them to accelerate their messaging as well, because they can then separate themselves from the big guys they want to separate from. It helps everyone, and if they grow to that by another 4%, great. We are not, I'm not concerned about competition. We get sometimes the question, hey, what about these guys and what about these guys? The market is so huge, you can't reason, if you think about it, what Google, the size of Google, you talked about it. What was it? $2 trillion?
2.3 trillion, I think, today.
So if you cut away from them 0.5%, they won't even notice. but you have a couple of $100 million in terms of valuation. So it's not about competition and we need to be the only ones. We don't need to be the only ones. We would love to work with others. We'd love to work with others. We already have great partnerships. And if someone like DuckDuckGo wants to talk to us, great, sure. It can only help or serve the entire purpose.
Yeah, that's nice to hear, and that's a little bit, I guess, different than I originally, I guess, I would have thought. But it totally makes sense as to what you're saying. So one of my questions was, you know, most things don't stay at the top of charts forever. I mean, if you look at Apple in the phone space, even Apple, you know, they've been around the top of the phone space for maybe 15 years. But before that, it was BlackBerry. Everybody had a BlackBerry. But as far as the search engine space, Google's really been the dominant player for, I mean, multiple decades. So do you think Google's in a spot where they're too big to fall? And not necessarily fall, but do you think they're kind of stuck in that one spot? Do you think there's room for somebody else, whether it's you guys or somebody else, to come in and claim that number one spot?
In a perfect world, I would like to not have a number one spot. That would be a perfect world. So if we clip away a little bit from Google and bring Google down to something like 40, 35, 40%, and then you have a few players that are, being around the 10, 15, 20, and so on. That would be in a perfect world. I don't think it will happen in the next 5 years. I don't know if it will happen in the next 10 years, but I don't see, and for me, the best outcome would be we have a set of really search engines that, have a similar market share maybe, and then work. We had that when you go back 10, 15 years, you had all these players. There were a lot more search engines on the market. They are now all gone or using the same source. So if we can change that, perfect. Yeah, that would be the perfect outcome.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, instead of one big monopoly player, you'd rather see, one large player and then several, more of an even playing field with more decentralized and more unbiased throughout that entire space of the search engine.
Yeah.
Are they right?
Yeah.
And that will happen, right? Market forces will push it. When, as Jörg said, 5 years, 10 years, we don't know. But this industry is very unique in the fact there's very few players in the market, and there is a trend. So Google has been losing market share year on year over the past 5 years, and that's due to firstly legislation that's coming into play to try and hinder their monopolization. And so that's great news for new people coming into the market, but also people are becoming more aware of the issues around data security, how their information is being used, and how the information that they receive is being manipulated to manipulate their choices. So as we've got kind of those converging forces coming into play through legislation and awareness, which means that year on year, Google's losing market share.
Yeah, and what's really surprising to me, you said 0.7 is what DuckDuckGo is. I feel like, I personally haven't used DuckDuckGo, but I mean, maybe I've used it a few times, but it's not my primary search engine. But as much as I see it, as much as I hear about it, as much as I hear people talk about it, or they even have commercials, on national TV, I'm shocked that market share is that small. But maybe it speaks less about DuckDuckGo and more about just truly how monopolized on the market that Google has on that. So
yeah,
that's interesting to hear your feedback on that. So we talk about Google and the different players in the space. Can you guys talk a little bit more about your roadmap, the future for Timpi, and as far as new product developments and where you guys plan to go from here?
Yeah, so our products and services are all based around this data that we've been. And so our roadmap essentially is about continuing to build our DePin network, growing that network, adding features onto that, and then using that network and the data that it collects for additional products and services. And so we have, as I said, our Apex 2 event coming up, where we're releasing the Guardian nodes. That's going to help us pull more data in and get prepared for the release of a search engine, which will be in the public release will be in Q4 this year. But before that, we also have the release of our dashboards. And these dashboards really provide the function of the central host of our ecosystem, effectively. So the dashboard is where people run their nodes from. It's also a public profiling space where people can curate information on their entire online profile, so they can have their YouTube videos, their social profiles, they can have their charts that they're tracking on crypto, and then they can share these with the world. So they have the Datex event coming up, then we have the dashboard release, and then we've got the search engine coming out as well.
So you mentioned Q4 2024, if I'm hearing that right, that's when the public release of the search engine will be available, where if I want to start searching on Timpi, I can?
Yeah, correct.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good piece to know. Let me make sure, audience, I'm going to say that again because that's important. Q4 2024, that's the public release of Timpi. So you can check it out then. And if people, Q4 is 3-4 months from now, is there a way that they can get on an email list or a waiting list with you guys as far as to get notified when that release comes out?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go onto our website, which is timpi.io, I'm sure we can provide links somewhere when this is released. You can register to get first notification of all our product releases, including the Apex events and the dashboard and the search engine. We also have Twitter or X, where we're posting daily updates, and also Discord and Telegram.
Awesome. That's good to know. Always good to be notified. A lot of times we hear about these exciting things or whatever it is, and then when the time comes, they forget about it. So it's good that people can go a place and get reminders with that. So as you guys have been building Timpi, what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced? And one, just creating the technology, because the technology behind what you guys are doing is super advanced. I know, different AI stuff with LLMs can make that easier, but I know there's definitely some challenges with that. So can you talk a little bit about the challenges you face in creating the technology, one, but also in general, and how have you been able to conquer those challenges?
Yeah, I can maybe start on the technology bit. So building a decentralized or DePin, a decentralized search engine web index, it's one of the challenges is there is a huge amount of data, basically. And that needs to be stored in a decentralized way, but you also need to have access to it while not having too much delay, and have also the availability and the reliability on the system. So we had to actually create our own protocol that allows us, or allows the network, to always know what node is where and what does it have to do and stuff like that. So it's very resilient, and as I said, it grows on its own autonomously by issuing or minting new NFTs at some point. So after the Apex event, as I said, there will not be a growth. We will not have any NFTs anymore that we sell directly. But it's the challenge of decentralization, making sure that for a search engine, it's very important, for example, to have very low latency. And we have been doing our beta testing, closed beta testing with the search engine for months now. And we can actually say we come close to the search result response time that you see on the common search engines today. We are very close to that, even sometimes exceeding that. And that's for decentralized infrastructure. I mean, that's really cool. So that what was the biggest challenge, is the reliability and speed, basically.
And what you just said right there, as far as the speed of, that site loading, as just most people, and myself included, you probably don't even think about that. Like, I didn't even think about that until you said it, as far as like the speed of it, the site launching, because you're just so used to it being second nature. But, like you said, there's challenges, like it doesn't just happen automatically. So
No.
there's challenges behind that. So, I wouldn't have even thought of that, but it's good that you guys are right there and competing as far as the usability is same on par with everybody else.
Yeah. And from a project point of view, before I give over to Gareth, I think what we really do well is we keep the balance between what is Web3 and blockchain and what is traditional technology. So there is a lot of projects out there that are actually crypto purist and they want to do everything on blockchain. And we have been asked in the past, why don't you have your index on the blockchain? Well, it would be not really good. So it's finding the balance between utilizing blockchain technology where it is useful and where it is really needed and where it makes sense, and using all the other technology where they fit. So we are not just purely putting everything into blockchain. We utilize blockchain where it makes sense, and we utilize other technology or create other technology where needed. And that's, I think, very important to anyone who wants to start in this industry is, you need to look at what fits best where.
I think that's a brilliant aspect that you just bring up there, is a lot of people that are, like you said, maybe they're decentralized, DeFi, whatever, purist, and that's everything is about that for them. There's a lot of things that end up on the blockchain that probably don't need to be on the blockchain, just for the simple aspect of somebody saying, well, I can't, which maybe it's cool, to be able to say you can do that, or you can put this behind a JPEG or on the blockchain, whatever it may be. But does it actually provide value that way? And if your goal is really to build a company instead of just a project, if your goal is to build a company, companies are about providing value to other people. And so hearing you guys say that about our goal is to basically provide the most value and use blockchain where it's helpful in that aspect, and not just use blockchain because it's a buzzword right now and maybe it'll help us get a higher valuation. I give you guys credit for that, and hearing you guys say that out loud, it's a really nice aspect just for me listening to you guys. Gareth, do you have any aspects as far as biggest challenges that you faced in building out Timpi?
Well, I guess it's, you nicely touched on it there, really, where we are solving real world problem. Yeah, and that's our mission. We're here on a mission to provide people freedom to access unbiased and unmanipulated data. That can be in conflict with, the crypto industry in the sense that we're not here to raise funds and then bugger off, right? Raise funds, hype, and then disappear, which is what happens a lot. And so a lot of the decisions that we make are to ensure that we are going to be a success, and we will be here next year and the year after that, and in 10 years time and in 20 years time. And I think that's where the industry as a whole should be heading, is providing real value, because blockchain industry is a beautiful one, it's fantastic, but we need people building valuable technology in it. And that's actually been a challenge, because that isn't what the industry expects. There's expectations which people come out with a dream. They promote this dream, hype the dream, get the funds, and then bugger off. And then people live or die, and they'll either make a lot of money or lose a lot of money on the hype of a product that is never going to be built.
I think one thing that's really, that comes to mind as you're talking there is the whole aspect of, people that are, as they like to say, boomers, or if you're talking to grandma, like, they don't understand crypto, and a lot of their initial thought is it's a scam or whatever that, or it's used for criminals. But I think a lot of that comes from is because, obviously, that's not my belief, but I think a lot of that comes from not truly understanding that there's value behind the missions behind those different projects. And so to hear you guys talk about that, if crypto in general and decentralized finance and the decentralized world is really going to get widespread adoption, it comes from value. And if there's one value project and there's a zillion different, rug pulls, whatever it is, that good project is going to be, hidden amongst the rest. And so to really bring the space forward, you need more projects like kind of what you guys are talking about, whether it's what you guys do or something else, but value-based projects that really lead that space forward. So it's good to hear that.
If I can just add to that, that's why right now we're just telling the world about what we're doing, because we have the products that have been built. everything we spoke about today is already built. We've been developing over the last 2 years. During the bear market, we kept on building and kept on building, right? Because, regardless of what crypto market was doing, it didn't matter. We're on a mission to build these products and continue to grow the business. And so that's why just now, whilst we've been building for 2 or more than 2 years, people are only just hearing about us because we're ready to actually release the products.
Yep. Build first and build something worth sharing and then go share it. So that's good to hear. I want to touch on, I know we're running, I want to respect you guys' time too, but I do want to touch on your generative Wilson. I know there's a lot of different, AI models out there. Obviously, ChatGPT, everybody knows about that. Twitter's got one with Grok. Everybody seems like they're spinning one up here and there. Can you guys talk about your generative Wilson and what makes it?
Yep. So, Wilson is trained in the same way as any other large language model is trained. The difference is the training set as well. You touched base initially on something so there is not such thing like an unbiased large language model. That's impossible. There will always be a bias because you will always configure this model in a way that you think it should behave. And that's the challenge we have right now. Who makes this decision? And anywhere else, this decision is made in a small room, and a very small group of people will make decisions about how this model will work or what it should do. And that's the first challenge that we are solving with our governance process. So we do have the ability to, and we include our community to help us make decisions on either search engine, but also on our large language model and even what the future of Timpi. So that's where we have a governance process. So anyone who wants to have a say, that's great. You can have a say. So we will, when we talk about Wilson is not unbiased, but I call it more the community bias. So we can basically utilize the community to get an opinion on how should Wilson behave or train, or what's the ethics around it. And that's where we are different, because the data sets that we provide to Wilson, these data sets are unbiased. That's great. And that's a unique point that no one else actually has right now. Everywhere where you show, you depend on information that is always biased in some way or the other. Utilizing our index allows us to have an unbiased view on things and have unbiased record sets or unbiased data sets. So, and the next step is then when you start creating the large language model, you need to make some decisions, and we want to have feedback from our community using our governance process to get this feedback. For anyone who wants to shape our future, Timpi's future, to some degree, maybe your own, when it comes to your online experience, I can only say be a participate in our voting process by just staking onto one of our validators, and you have a say. And that makes the process very easy.
So with that, one thing I know a lot of DAOs sometimes can run into is, my question to you would be, is there a situation where somebody can be a big, basically stake a large amount, and then hold more governance in that vote?
In theory, yes. In practical, really no, because you would need to invest a lot of money. And if you invest a lot of money, the token price will so you need to buy a lot of tokens. If you buy a lot of tokens, the price will increase. So you need to buy even more. There is at some point a part where you really can't outvote what we already have in terms of voting power of the community. So it is in theory possible. Practical, I don't see that happening. And, so we are already balanced with, how many do we have? 15 million tokens. We have about 30 or 40% of our supply staked, I think.
Pretty large. That's a pretty large.
I'm not entirely sure, but it's from the circulating supply. I think about 30% of our circulating supply is already staked. So that's a huge amount that someone has to overcome.
Yeah, and for the audience too, 30 to 40% of the circulating supply being staked, especially for an early stage company where Timpi is at. If you're not connecting the dots there, what that means is the people who are familiar with Timpi and hold Timpi are believers in Timpi, and that's why they're staking it. And that's why that percentage is so large, is because a large amount of people, believe in that. And even a lot of people who are staked, most of the times people don't stake their full allocation. That's that number of 30 to 40% could easily be, double that of 80% of the token holders, are probably staking. And you might have information on that with behind your blockchain, but just hearing that, as a, somebody not involved, it's like, oh wow, that's a large amount of people who are big time believers. So good for you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, we really do have a great community that have supported us. Many of them are still here supporting us from the very beginning, right? When we did our first round 18 months ago. And so we're very fortunate, and they understand what we're doing and understand where we're heading as well. So yeah, we're very fortunate, and we're just at the cusp of some very exciting times for Timpi.
Yeah, no, that's definitely exciting. So congratulations to you guys for that. One other question, just as a marketer myself, that I'm curious is, when users search online, do you guys have data as far as how many websites they click on before they move off or get their answer or close the tab? Is that information you guys have now?
You mean in terms of do we track our user?
Well, I don't know if you had that kind of data or something like that.
We do have general statistical information about users. Yes, we do not track our users. We do not store their information. But of course, we do now, when it comes, for example, when they search for something, we know what it is they're searching for. Otherwise, we couldn't provide the search results. And we utilize that to widen the scope sometimes from the search or stuff like that. But we will not change the search term, and we will not track the user over many pages and stuff like that. That's not going to happen with us.
Well, that's probably a good thing. The marketer in me was curious. Cool. And so I appreciate you guys chatting and sharing with that. I know we've kind of gone long here, but I've really enjoyed talking to you guys. So it just seemed like it flowed naturally. I think if anybody actually listens to this entire length, I think it's hard to listen to this entire conversation and not have an understanding of Timpi and the solutions they solve. But to me, just my own personal opinion, it's hard to look at this and say like, man, it's really cool. It's great getting to talk to you guys. So thank you for joining. I know you guys have your sale coming out, your pre-sale for your nodes coming out on July 15th, which is Monday. And so this video should be out by then. So if anybody wants to get in on that pre-sale, I'll include the landing page here in the description, the link to that. And the public sale goes live on the 17th. So if you want to get access to that early, go ahead and click that link in the description. If you want to make that decision, then that's totally up to you. But if you listen to this conversation and feel the way that I do about Timpi now, then you'll probably be clicking that link. So you can check that out in the description. I'll also include all their links to their Twitter page and their website, so you guys can check that out and continue to stay up to date on Timpi. And make sure you look out for them Q4 of 2024 for the search engine to go live, and where you can start using and getting the perks of their great search engine. So with that being said, I'll pass it to you guys if you have any closing thoughts here.
Well, it's great to do this with Jared. Thank you for hosting us. Much appreciated. I just encourage people to please visit our website, learn about what we're doing, join our socials. It's timpi.io, and you'll be able to link to all our social channels from there, and join our community and keep updated with what we're doing. There's a lot to come.
Yep. Same from my side, Jared. Thank you. It was really great. Very interesting and good question. So thank you for hosting that. And I can only say, look, I'm more on the Discord side, obviously, because I'm the technology-driven guy. And everything that goes around the nodes and how this works is all on Discord. So join us on Discord. Ask the hard questions, please do. If you have any questions or even if you want to challenge us in some areas, please do, because we are used to it. We have a really great community on Discord, and they have asked all kinds of questions, and we're happy to, to answer them.
Build you guys stronger too. So
yeah, of course.
Well, that was awesome. So thanks guys for joining us, and thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.